Hi, Martin here with another OpenInsight Quick Start Guide video. I was going to leave looking at the context menus for another time, but a few of you have advised me to cover it now, so here goes. Parts of this topic are beyond my technical capability, and for this reason I will begin by using PowerPoint to provide some important background information. This is largely taken from the help files within OpenInsight, so feel free to skip the first part if you wish. I'll then take a look at creating a simple context menu and accessing that menu from a control on our patient entry form. So what is a context menu? A context menu is a concise menu that is run when the user right mouse clicks over a specific control, such as an edit line. The menu items available within a context menu are always specific to the calling control, whereas the menu items from the form's main menu usually cover the whole form. As such, the context menu items should always provide the user with choices that are relevant to the control that the user is interacting with. For example, I'm often working in Windows applications and I forget where a specific command is located in a complicated menu. In these instances, I often try a right mouse click first, because the context menu will often give me a smaller list of options to try. For example, if I'm working in Word and I want to format a paragraph or insert a hyperlink, those options are readily available to me in a context menu when I right mouse click. I don't need to remember where to find them in Word's many menu options. When should you consider using a context menu? Contrary to my statement in the previous lesson, a context menu does not need to be included on every control. In fact, it would take some time to include a special context menu for every control in your form, let alone throughout your application. Luckily, OpenInsight includes a default context menu for edit lines and edit boxes that bring together both OpenInsight and Windows common commands, and this saves you lots and lots of work. After all, most edit line and edit boxes are going to want a context menu with cut, copy and delete and paste, and that's basically what the default menu in OpenInsight provides you with. So, when deciding if you need to include a context menu on a specific control, my opinion is that you should think about whether there is a user-invoked routine that needs to be offered, or where a user might want to check what menu options are relevant to that control. For example, it might make sense to include some text or paragraph formatting options for a rich text box, like the ability to make text bolded, italic or underlined. Remember that context menus are specific to a form and or a single control on that form, so my advice would be to plan your context menus very carefully. Context-sensitive menus are created and maintained using the Context Menu Builder, which is located in the User Interface workspace. With this tool, you can customize context-sensitive menus that are both relevant to a Windows control and that are displayed when the user right mouse clicks over that control. The Context Menu Builder consists of the form name, and you should select the form that the menu will be used on from that drop-down selection. The control name is another drop-down selection list that displays all of the controls in the selected form, and you should select which control the context menu will be associated with. The pop-up item text prompt is used to define the actual text that will appear for each menu item of the context menu, and the pop-up item ID is the item identifier that OpenInsight creates when the item text is entered. The entry is editable, but it's recommended that the system-generated ID is accepted, and that tends to be what I do when I'm working with OpenInsight. A short line of help text can be entered to provide the user with some guidance, and a bitmap can be defined, and this will be displayed on the context menu just like the bitmaps in our edit menu in the previous lesson. The large white area is simply used to display our context menu items as they're added to the menu structure, and you'll see that in a moment. Styles are used to define the display properties for the individual menu items, so a menu item can be hidden, disabled or checked by default, and these can be changed within code as required. The Send Message To options provide an area to define the event parameters that are associated with the selection of each menu line item. Choosing Entity enables you to define which repository entity will receive the message selected in the message dropdown. Control window enables you to define the controller window that will receive the message selected in the message drop-down, and the options available to you in the message drop-down depend on whether entity or control window has been selected above. If entity was selected, then the message drop-down simply contains execute. Otherwise, it will contain a list of events from which you can then choose. And the parameters edit line can be used to define any parameters that may need to be sent to the entity or the control window. The final set of controls are the environment settings, and these enable you to select whether or not the OpenInsight and or the Windows right-click menus will be included in your context menus. The environment settings are stored in a sysenv record. If the OpenInsight menu checkbox is checked, then the global OpenInsight context menu options will be displayed in your context menus. By default, these include menu options for options, help and context help, and other options might also apply as relevant. If the Windows menu checkbox is checked, then the global Windows context menu options will be displayed in your context menus, and by default these include menu items for cut, copy, paste, undo and select all. OpenInsight includes a context menu function, and it's this function that creates and executes context menus. This function syntax consists of status equals context menu, and then in brackets control id message override, some other parameters in there, and control override, as you can see on the screen. Within this, the following parameters apply. There is control id, which has the format window name.control name, where window name is the identifier of the window that contains the affected control, and control name is the identifier of the control. And you'll notice that that there's a period that separates the two values. Message has a value of create menu, and this will create the menu for the affected control, and this function must be placed on the create event of the window for that to operate. Override is an @fm delimited record containing the specification for the menu, and parameter 2, 3 and 4 are all reserved, so we don't need to worry about those at this time. When valued with a fully qualified control name, the menu created for the control id will be the same as the control override controls menu. It should be noted that the create menu message will create the menu for the control from the sysrepos menu context repository record, and the repository record is created through the context menu builder within the user interface workspace tool. When referencing the current control within your source code, the system properties will return null values, and for this reason you will need to use the window properties. So for example, suppose your menu item executes a stored procedure. If you need to know which control has focus, then you'll need to use get property @window focus rather than get property system focus. Using the control override allows you to create a single menu in the context menu builder and then place this menu on more than one control on the form. For example, to create a menu, you would use status equals context menu and then control id passing in create menu. And to create a menu from a different control, you would use status equals context menu, then control id create menu, and then pass in some parameters. So in this example, the customer's name.